I'm back and I have braces. So if you hear me kind of lisping, I'm still getting used to them. Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. My name's Megan and today I'm going to be talking about a really important topic, which is how to overcome the anxiety and the fear around your symptoms. Now this is obviously a really big topic, but I'm going to do my best to kind of simplify it in this video. So those who have been on my channel for a while know that I suffered from pppd and mdds for 4 years, and that is persistent postural perceptual dizziness and mal de embarkment syndrome. And in that time, I can tell you that my anxiety was absolutely through the roof. And I already had health anxiety, so these symptoms on top were just a nightmare. I literally felt like I was going to die most of the time. It was unbearable. But overcoming the anxiety was one of the key factors in my recovery journey, and I don't think I would have recovered if I had stayed so anxious. So in this video, I'm going to give you a few things that you can start doing to really try to lower the anxiety. Number one is somatic tracking. Now I have talked about this on my channel before. This is something I used in the later stages of my recovery. So it was August 2021 when I found the Steady coach, and she had a somatic tracking audio that I tried, and I found it really quite helpful at first because it got me to look at my symptoms in a less panicked way, in a more neutral and calm way. It's like looking at your symptoms with curiosity instead of panic, and it does take some practice, it does take some getting used to, because obviously your natural reaction is to freak out about them. But the more you practice this, the more your brain will start to realize that actually these symptoms are not dangerous, you're safe. Practice number 2 is parasympathetic breathing, and I will talk about this forever because it's my favorite practice to calm the nervous system and to really relax the body, and it just reduces my anxiety. Even now, if I have a moment of anxiety about anything, I do that breathing and it helps so much. So the way you do that breathing is to just breathe in through your nose into your stomach, direct it down into your kind of pelvic floor area, direct it down into your belly, and then constrict your throat and breathe out for like 6 to 8 seconds if you can through your nose. And get the exhale really long as you can. This is something that you can use when your symptoms are triggered in the moment, when your anxiety is triggered. You can use it when you wake up, before you go to sleep. It's just a way to consistently regulate your nervous system, and it is having a physical impact on your body. Even if your symptoms don't decrease in the moment, it's still having an impact. So please do this. And it took me about 2 months of doing this every single day, and I was doing it kind of after my VRT practices as well, which I'll get into in a second. But I was doing it for 2 months straight, and the symptoms were still awful. You know, don't get me wrong, it's not a miracle worker, but it kind of is, because after a while, after 2 months, I actually managed to stop a panic attack in its tracks with that breathing technique. The symptoms were raging and I had to kind of steady myself on my wall. I felt so awful. And I remember I was just gonna lose my mind with fear, but I forced myself to sit down on my bed and do that breathing technique. And it took me about 10-15 minutes of doing that to actually calm the nervous system and to stop the panic attack. And that was the first time that I really felt like I had some kind of control over the anxiety and that my body was actually listening to me. Because before that, it was like my body was just running away from me with all of these symptoms, just causing mayhem. So there is literally no downside to doing this practice all day. But of course, you want to live your life as well. So just set aside some time for a practice, 5-10 minutes each day. It doesn't even have to be 10 minutes in one go. If it adds up to 10 minutes over the day, that's perfectly fine too. Practice number 3 to help me overcome the anxiety of symptoms was actually vestibular rehabilitation therapy. So this is when you do kind of robotic-ish movements to get your brain stimulated and used to doing those movements. And I will say right now that VRT did not make my symptoms magically disappear. The main thing VRT did for me was it stopped me being anxious of doing those movements. So for me, looking side to side was a huge trigger in the beginning. I literally couldn't even do that without the whole room being like, whoa, You know, every time I moved my head, it was like that. So I was terrified to do that movement, and I got so much neck stiffness because I was just too scared to move. So gentle neck stretching was also a part of my VRT routine. And after each exercise I did, I brought the symptoms back down with the parasympathetic breathing. I, raised my symptoms up and then brought them back down. And that's how the brain learns that you are safe while you do them. And so after about 2 months of doing that, as I said, the symptoms were still bad, but the panic, the anxiety started to come down. And I kept doing the parasympathetic breathing after that, for the rest of the year. But I stopped VRT because real life was becoming my VRT. I had learned how to drive, which did take quite a lot of courage, but my symptoms were always better in the car. So I figured I would be okay. And I just had to take really deep breaths before each driving lesson and just tell myself, no matter what happens here, I'm going to get through this, I'm gonna be okay. And usually it was much better than my worst fears, it was always manageable. And of course, there were many times during my recovery journey when I felt so panicked and so overcome with terror that I just had to crawl into my bed and hug myself because I literally couldn't go anywhere, couldn't do anything. So the fourth way I lowered my anxiety was through gradual exposure. So this meant that I set myself very short-term goals and worked towards them. And once I hit them, I felt so much more capable. And this was something as tiny as going for a 5-minute walk instead of a 2-minute walk. I was also very, very scared to go out for dinner or to restaurants. I was scared to be out alone for a while, but I just kept doing it. This is the thing, you have to just do these things. There's no magic cure, there's no magic way of getting over anxiety. You have to put yourself in the situations that make you anxious and then use your toolkit to kind of bring the anxiety back down. And that's exactly what I did every time. And over time, the brain just learns that actually I'm safe and this is okay and I'm going to get through this. But you have to learn that your brain is listening to everything your mouth says. Your brain hears it all. So if you're doing, 5 minutes of breathing, that's great. But if you're then spending the rest of the day panicking and talking about how you hate your life and that you wish you were dead and the symptoms are not stopping, all of that, I used to do that all the time. I'm not saying that this is abnormal. This is a completely normal reaction to these symptoms because they are the worst thing ever. But the more you say that, the more your brain hears that, and the longer they'll stick around. And that is just genuinely the truth with these kind of mind-body conditions. And that doesn't mean that you're to blame. It doesn't mean that you're crazy, because the symptoms are real. But we need to stop constantly reiterating just how awful they are. We need to start telling our brain positive things so that it latches onto those instead. Neuroplasticity tells us that neurons that fire together wire together. Energy flows where attention goes, that is so true. Because think about it, your symptoms probably get way worse when you focus on them with full intention. And that is kind of a survival adaptation for the brain because it thinks that you think the symptoms are really important, therefore it's just giving you more and more of them. So in order to lower the symptoms, in order to lower the anxiety, we have to kind of fake it till we make it, We have to start telling ourselves that I'm safe. Even if I don't feel safe, you tell yourself I'm safe, and you get some essential oils, you rub it on your hands and you inhale that, because lavender, I used to keep a bottle of lavender next to my bed at all times. And whenever I was really stressed, I used to just hold it under my nose and inhale that for like 10-15 minutes. And it really helped me feel more calm. So there are things that we can do to lower the anxiety, but you have to do them. And that's the tough part. So the fifth and final way of lowering my anxiety was to do visualization techniques. This is a very spiritual practice. It's a mind-body practice that I used throughout my entire healing journey. So I would visualize myself at a party thrown just for me, and my whole family and friends were there celebrating my recovery and how happy they were for me. And I imagined myself completely anxiety-free. I imagined myself doing the things that made me anxious. And then I calmed myself down with the breath. If I felt anxious just thinking about doing it, that's a huge indicator that this is something you need to work through. So I just kept on visualizing myself as the person I wanted to be, as the person I would be once I was recovered. So I think these techniques have not only helped me overcome my anxiety about the chronic dizziness symptoms, but also just my anxiety in general. But the most important thing I want you to know is that if you have had medical clearance, then you need to start trusting that. Because it took me a long time to really trust that I was okay to heal and I could heal, because once we've had these symptoms for so long, they kind of become a part of us, but we don't want that. We don't want to be identified with it. So please try your best to not identify with your symptoms as much as you can. Just tell yourself that these symptoms are something my body is doing right now, most likely to get my attention away from these deep emotional wounds that I haven't dealt with. So I'm going to focus my attention on those things rather than the dizziness, because I know the dizziness is just distracting me from what's really going on. And I really had to see it that way for a long time. I mean, of course, your dizziness could have started from a physical event, like an ear infection or pppd, for example, but there's a reason why it's continued for so long, and that is obviously the nervous system response. So we need to turn that response down, right down, in order to recover from the symptoms. So I really, really hope that these techniques can help you begin to overcome your anxiety. Of course, if you need some more personal support and guidance, then please don't hesitate to reach out to me. I'm now offering a free 15-minute consultation for coaching. So if you want to just get to know me a little bit more and about what I personally do in my coaching sessions, feel free to book in. But having been through this myself, I can pretty much guarantee you that once you start implementing a daily routine to overcome anxiety, your brain and body, it will listen to you. It will. But it might just take a little bit of time. So you might have to just be patient for now. So thank you so much for watching this video. I really hope it was helpful, and I'll see you next time. Bye.